This channel uses C-score to evaluate teams of the Super Bowl era, a metric we created in order to look well beyond a team's record. One of the more important components of C-score, which you can learn more about in the description of this video, is strength of schedule, and that makes sense. If two teams perform in the exact same manner, but one team did so against a tougher set of opponents, then that team deserves more love. Over the years, some teams have had it tough, while others have had it easy. Some of those teams have had it very easy. And today, we're going to count down the 25 teams of the Super Bowl era who played the easiest slate of opponents over the regular season. But we're not going to be doing that strictly by their strength of schedule rating. Nuh-uh. We're going to take the average C-score of their opponents. Faced 14 opponents with a combined C-score of -98, that's an average of -7. 16 opponents with a combined 104, that's -6.5. You get the idea. Thank you for joining us today. Like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell. You know the drill. Let's see which teams had the red carpet rolled out for them the hardest. At number 25, we have a team that's not so good by C-score, the 2010 Arizona Cardinals. Yes, they went 5-11, which shouldn't rank them this low on the surface, but they played such an easy schedule that their C-score dropped down to 29.282. Taking a look at the top and bottom of that schedule, the hardest team they played were the Atlanta Falcons, going over 16 in C-score. The only other team they played with at least double digits are the Chargers. Next best were the New Orleans Saints, who couldn't quite get to 7. The easiest opponent on their schedule were the terrible Carolina Panthers, getting under -33. They also played the very bad Denver Broncos and twice played the Seattle Seahawks, that asterisk indicating a two-time opponent. Considering how bad the rest of the NFC West was, it's little surprise to see the Cardinals here, with their average opponent this season coming in at -8.301. At number 24, we had a team that broke out in the 2000 Philadelphia Eagles. This was a very good team, going 11-5, getting a triple-digit point differential, finishing in the top 5 in points allowed. Their C-score was 10.779. But they built all of that off the backs of a very easy schedule. Not so much in playing the 2000 Tennessee Titans. They went over 22 points, and twice playing the Giants at about a 12. On the easy side of things, though, they played the Cardinals twice. You may recall in the year 2000, the Cardinals were still in the NFC East. They also played the Ohio combination of Cleveland and Cincinnati. These three C-scores on their own add up to -100, which will explain Philly's overall opponent score of -8.426. We move on to number 23 and the season right before the AFL-NFL merger, the 1969 Dallas Cowboys. Again, this is a very good team, 11-2-1, outscoring their opponents by nearly 150 points, putting up a C-score of 18.88. In doing so, they played a pretty cupcake schedule. Only one team over 7 points in C-score, that being the Los Angeles Rams at just over 18. The Baltimore Colts and the Cleveland Browns were the next best, and they combined for just over 12. Now looking at the easy side of things, the Pittsburgh Steelers were a terrible team in 1969. Dallas had the pleasure of playing them. They also had the pleasure of playing the Eagles and the Saints 2 times, this being a season where the Saints were in the same division as the Cowboys. Taken all together, Dallas's average opponent this season was -8.563. We're still in the pretty early years of the Super Bowl era for our number 22 entry, this being the 1975 Los Angeles Rams. And for the third consecutive season, we've got a good team with a double-digit C-score. The 12-2 Rams this season put up a score of 24.875. In their case, they did have some hard opponents. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that season's eventual Super Bowl champion, almost put up a score of 40. The Baltimore Colts and the Dallas Cowboys were also up there at around 20 and 16 each. Bringing the Rams' number down this season was the amount of very easy opponents they faced. In the NFC West, the bottom-dwelling New Orleans Saints with a negative 35, the Chicago Bears at close to negative 29, and the San Diego Chargers at close to negative 26. There were other cupcakes on there as well, altogether giving the Rams an average opponent with a C-score of negative 8.89. We had a visit with our number 21 team on this countdown not too long ago in the 1991 New York Jets, where we discovered they were the most balanced team of the entire Super Bowl era. Offense and defense contributed almost equally to this C-score of negative 4.843. Their hardest opponent was the Houston Oilers, who they wound up facing in the playoffs that year, almost at 22 in C-score. They did get 2 matchups against the Buffalo Bills, who were almost at 15. But after that, the Detroit Lions, despite making the NFC title game, weren't so powerful with their 5.223 C-score. On the easy side of things, let's first take a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were at negative 30. Then 4 divisional matchups, 2 against the Indianapolis Colts and 2 against the New England Patriots, that combined for more than a negative 130 in C-score. That will give this New York Jets team an average opponent of negative 8.927. We go on to number 20 and a team that made it to the Super Bowl, the 2015 Carolina Panthers, who led the league in scoring on their way to a 15-1 record and a near plus 200 point differential. That C-score is gargantuan, 25.899, but it was achieved at the expense of some bad football teams. In fact, only 2 opponents the Panthers faced all season had a positive C-score, the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. Their third hardest opponent, the Houston Texans, were in the negatives. The reason they're not ranked even higher than this is because the bottom teams they faced weren't too terrible, and nobody from their division. The Titans were the worst of the bunch with a negative 25.5 C-score. All told, the average opponent for the Carolina Panthers this year checked in at a pretty bad negative 8.929. For the second time on this countdown, we have an AFC East team from 1991 that went 8-8. At number 19 are the 91 Miami Dolphins. As usual during this time, the Dolphins were all offense and no defense, on their way to a C-score of negative 8.754. Just like the Jets, we see they played the Houston Oilers and the Buffalo Bills twice, and they also added the 15 and change C-score from the Kansas City Chiefs. Their opponents on the easy end of things, twice with the Colts, again with the Buccaneers, but this time adding the Bengals at negative 24.3 and change. The average opponent for the Miami Dolphins this season was almost negative 9, exactly at negative 8.952. The 1979 season was mostly marked by the AFC being a lot stronger than the NFC, partially explaining how the 79 Chicago Bears wind up here at number 18. They did have a winning record, and they did put together a positive C-score of 2.004. Their opponents, nothing too great here. The highest ranked C-score are the New England Patriots at just 11.815. Not too far behind are that season's Dolphins and Cowboys. They did have 2 very easy opponents within their division that year, the Detroit Lions and the all-of-a-sudden bad Minnesota Vikings. A matchup with the near negative 21 49ers doesn't help matters. We are getting achingly close to an average of negative 9 here. The Bears check in officially at negative 8.992. Let us now return to the very first season of the Super Bowl era. At number 17 are the 1966 Dallas Cowboys. They went 10-3-1, but that record is not reflective of their powerful plus 206 point differential. Their C-score on the year was 25.513. They only played one opponent all season with a C-score higher than a 2. But in fairness, that was the Cleveland Browns, and Dallas played them twice. Minnesota, 1.95. The next best team on the ledger were the St. Louis Cardinals and their negative C-score. They got to play the New York Giants twice, giving them a total of about negative 80. Also a matchup with the Atlanta Falcons, an expansion team this season, at almost negative 37. And two matchups with the Steelers. We get a big gap here, which lessens Dallas's overall total here. But they are the first team here to break the 9-point barrier. Their average this year, negative 9.221. If one Cowboys team wasn't enough for you, let's get you another one. At number 16 are the 1971 Dallas Cowboys, the first team we see on this countdown who went on to win the Super Bowl. During the regular season, they were 11-3, put together a solid point differential, and by the end landed a C-score of 32.521. Right from the jump here, what truly stands out about this Cowboy team is that the third hardest opponent they faced was almost at a negative double-digit C-score with the New Orleans Saints at 9.1 and change. This is offset by facing three different opponents, the Rams once and the Redskins twice, who were in the teens. On the easy side of things, they faced one really terrible team in the Buffalo Bills, then the Giants twice at negative 21.5, then it kind of settled down with the Jets here at negative 14. That's the only thing keeping Dallas from going ever higher on this list. As it turns out, their average opponent came in at negative 9.262. If two Dallas Cowboy teams weren't enough for you, let's get you a third and our fourth overall. This from 1968, when they went 12-2, doing so with a plus 245 point differential. This is the highest Dallas Cowboys single season C-score for a team that did not win the Super Bowl at 34.186. No negative C-scores in their top three here. The Browns almost at 18. The defending two-time champion Packers, not so much the same team anymore. And the Minnesota Vikings combining for almost a 14. However, on the easy side of things, outside of playing the negative 26 Steelers, they had divisional matchups with the negative 28 Eagles and the negative 20 Redskins. That all added up, and despite not having any negatives in their top three, the Cowboys check in with an average opponent of negative 9.511. Let's get away from the Dallas Cowboys for the time being and head over to our number 14 entry, the 1970 Cincinnati Bengals. Mini spoiler alert, given how bad the AFC was in 1970, this is not the last time we're going to be seeing this season, especially given that the Bengals only had the third easiest schedule that year. They did manage a crazy season, starting 1-6 and ending 8-6, putting together a C-score of 2.702. They did face off with one very difficult opponent, that being the Detroit Lions at just over 33 points. No one else on their schedule could clear 5, with Washington and Kansas City doing the best. They did have one crack each at both the Boston Patriots and the Buffalo Bills, combining for over negative 71 and giving us almost a negative 50 with their two matchups against the Oilers. Cincy had a great year in 1970, just their third season of existence, but they did so with an average opponent at negative 9.676. It's time to visit the 2010 season once again, and we're looking here at the St. Louis Rams. They went 7-9 this year against what was the league's easiest schedule, and that C-score lets you know how easy it was, with a score of negative 14.984. It's of little surprise that none of the three hardest teams the Rams faced this season were from the NFC West. It is somewhat of a surprise that only one of their bottom three fit that category. That was the Arizona Cardinals, who we saw leading off this countdown. The Rams certainly did not have a tough time of things this season. Their average opponent was negative 9.838. We got to see the 1979 Chicago Bears earlier on this countdown. At number 12, we have the 1977 squad. They went 9-5 and outscored their opponents by just 2 points. This might indicate a C-score closer to 0, but because their schedule was so easy, it drops down to negative 6.098. They only faced 2 opponents the entire season with a C-score higher than a 3. But those 2 teams were kind of up there. The Rams crossed 24 points, the Oilers just missed hitting 16. In their second season of existence, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were division rivals with the Bears, but their schedule was set up to play each team in the NFC 1 time, hence the lack of an asterisk here. They also played the negative 25 Saints and the negative 23 and change Packers 2 times. With this slate of opponents, we have now crossed the double-digit barrier in average score here. The Bears' opponents were at negative 10.053. Our final stop before the top 10 gives us the 2007 Arizona Cardinals, the season before they broke through and made it to the Super Bowl. Everything here screams average, 8-8 plus 5-point differential, but the strength of schedule, very bad, lowering their C-score to negative 8.291. The main reason for this wasn't exactly from the lack of harder opponents. They got 1 team with a double-digit C-score in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got the Redskins almost pushing a 10, and twice played the Seahawks at 5.6 and change. The problem here is the easy side of things. Their top 2 easiest opponents were from the same division. Those 4 matchups against the Rams and the 49ers accumulated to almost negative 120 points in the negative. Taking also into account this negative 26 matchup with the Falcons, and the Cardinals will find themselves with an average opponent of negative 10.143. They started off the countdown, they put us on the edge of the top 10, and now the Cardinals will give us our number 10 entry. This is the 1998 team, one of the worst teams to ever make it to the playoffs. They went 9-7, but were still outscored on the year by 53 points, giving them a C-score of negative 15.356. They only faced 2 opponents with positive C-scores and faced nobody above a 10. They did face the Cowboys during the regular season twice with their 9.3 and change before again facing them in the playoffs. Only the Seahawks gave them another C-score above 0. The 3 easiest opponents they faced this year gave them 2 divisional opponents, the Eagles and the Redskins. An additional matchup with the San Diego Chargers plus a bunch of other teams in the negative give the 98 Cardinals an average opponent C-score of negative 10.456. The 2007 season was pretty fruitful for this countdown. Our number 9 entry belongs to that season's Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seattle did perform very well. They went 10-6, finished in the top 10 in scoring and in points allowed, and got themselves a triple-digit point differential. But all that got them was a C-score of 5.661. And the reason was this slate of opponents. They did get themselves the 2 Pennsylvania teams, the Steelers and the Eagles, for a double-digit C-score. The third hardest team they played was only at 3.5 in the Buccaneers. Taking a look at the easy side of things, we have the same combination that the Cardinals had this year. 2 matchups against the Rams and 2 matchups against the 49ers, with also that additional matchup against the Falcons. But in totality, it's the Seahawks whose opponents were easier than Arizona's. They will break the negative 11 point barrier at minus 11.168. This isn't just any Super Bowl champion checking in at number 8. These are the undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins. The fact that they went 14-0 and outscored their opponents by over 15 points a game, leading the league in scoring and points allowed, makes it, on the surface, seem as though this is clearly the best team of all time. Their schedule, however, knocks down their C-score, which is still robust at 33.076. Here is that schedule. They did face off against two teams with double-digit C-scores, both in the NFC, in the Giants and the Vikings. The only AFC team that appears on this list are the Chiefs at just over 6. On the easy side of things, 2 matchups with the atrocious Patriots, 2 matchups with the pretty bad Buffalo Bills, and 1 matchup with the atrocious Houston Oilers. The average C-score for opponents of this Miami Dolphins team is negative 11.438. We run into yet another very good team for our number 7 entry, the 1999 Jacksonville Jaguars, the league's stingiest scoring defense, 14-2 on the year, plus 179 in point differential, a C-score of 24.842. But in the regular season, they did not face one team with a double-digit C-score. In fact, their hardest opponent were the Tennessee Titans at 8.406, and of course they lost both of those games to Tennessee, and they lost to them in the playoffs. The Jets and the Broncos, coming off better seasons the year before, combined for just over 10.5. On the easy side of things, they got the really bad Bengals twice, the Saints once, and the expansion Browns twice. That means the average C-score for their opponents was negative 11.703. This is surely a candidate for one of the most feel-good NFL seasons of all time. But they're taking the number 6 spot here, the 1979 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 3 seasons after going 0-14 and just over 2 seasons after starting their franchise at 0-26, this team went 10-6, gave up the fewest points in the league, and made it to the NFC Championship game. But their C-score was negative 3.999. And the major reason for that was this somewhat pitiful slate of opponents. One team all season with a C-score above a 2, and that was the Chicago Bears at 2.004. Their third hardest opponent were the Los Angeles Rams, who they incidentally met in that NFC Championship game. They had 2 cupcakes in their division with the Lions and the Vikings. They also had the pleasure of playing the first season under Bill Walsh San Francisco 49ers. So, in totality, the average opponent for the Bucs this season not only breaks the negative 12-point barrier, but pushes up against negative 13 at minus 12.925. We've made it to the top 5, and at number 5 is a team that made it to the Super Bowl, the 1991 Buffalo Bills. Looking at that 13-3 record and a point differential of just under 9 points per game would make you believe the C-score would be higher. But they didn't exactly play a superstar lineup of opponents, so their C-score was 14.623. And here are those opponents, only one team with a C-score higher than 5.3, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs at around 15.3. 2 teams from the NFC here, the Lions and the Bears, only combined for a score just above 9. Hurting them were the other team they faced from the NFC that year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the single worst team of the entire Super Bowl era that wasn't an expansion team, the Indianapolis Colts. 2 matchups against them brings this average down. They do break negative 13, but just barely at negative 13.002. For all the times the Vikings made the Super Bowl during this era, 1975 was not one of them. This team will take our number 4 entry though, with that gaudy 197 point differential alongside a 12-2 record and a C-score of 24.079. But like so many other teams we've seen on this countdown, they only faced 2 teams with a positive C-score: the surprising 1975 Buffalo Bills and the Washington Redskins. Their toughest opponent within the division were the Detroit Lions, but they still carried with them a negative C-score. So too did the Chicago Bears, their second easiest opponent. Their easiest were the New Orleans Saints, and they also got to play the San Diego Chargers. This Vikings team does stay in the negative 13 range, but they were very close to leaving it. Their average opponent was a negative 13.948. We're going to take another look at another team that won the Super Bowl. At number 3 are the 1999 Los Angeles Rams. After a horrible decade, this team sprung to life with a 13-3 record and an absolutely gaudy point differential of 284 points. That C-score is nothing to sneer at. It's 33.597. It could have been that much higher had they faced somewhat better opponents. Their hardest opponent during the regular season was also their Super Bowl opponent, the Tennessee Titans. Their opening day opponent, the Ravens, and the Lions combined for a C-score of fewer than 6 points. They too got the luxury of playing the Ohio Connection, the Bengals, and the expansion Browns, and they were still divisional opponents during this time with the New Orleans Saints, getting to face that negative 30 score twice. With our previous entry just missing a negative 14, this Rams team takes us there at negative 14.595. And now we have our 4th Super Bowl champion. Coming in at number 2, we promised we'd see this season again, is 1970 and the Baltimore Colts. They won 11 games, had a point differential under 100, and a C-score of 10.698, the 3rd lowest of any Super Bowl champion, and the lowest of any Super Bowl champion not named the New York Giants. The toughest opponent they faced in 1970 were the Kansas City Chiefs and their C-score of barely over 4 points. They also faced the Chicago Bears at 3.1 and change, and their divisional rival Miami Dolphins at 0.751. On the other hand, look how easy the easiest were. 5 of their 14 games came against these opponents, twice against the Patriots, twice against the Bills, and once against the Oilers. That means their average opponent sank all the way down to negative 14.885. And we have yet to see the last of our 1970 entries. Taking our number 1 spot are the 1970 Miami Dolphins, a team that went 10-4 their first ever winning season, barely scraping by a positive C-score of 0.751. Their most difficult opponent was the number 2 entry on this list, the Baltimore Colts, and their C-score of almost 10.7. The Oakland Raiders and the Cleveland Browns give us a combined C-score of less than 4.5. Their easiest opponents were the same as the Colts. It's the teams that were in the middle here between hardest and easiest that gives the Dolphins the lowest average C-score for their entire slate of opponents. That number comes in at negative 15.243. Just for reference's sake, the team with the closest C-score to negative 15.243 are the 2011 Cleveland Browns, who check in at negative 15.203. This was a 4-12 team that was fairly decent at stopping their opponents from scoring, but not so good at scoring themselves. It was as if the Miami Dolphins played 14 consecutive games in 1970 against this team. Let me know what you think about all of this. The correlation between easiest strength of schedule in this top 25 was not exact, but it was pretty close. Is there any team you expected to see here but didn't? Perhaps a team you did see that you weren't expecting? Maybe you're wondering who faced the hardest slate of opponents in any given season. That list will be coming soon. Sound off on any of this or anything else you may have on your mind right down there in the comments section below. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.